This restaurant was Mary Johnson's favorite. She chose a window seat since she liked eating with a view. Every day, she enjoyed the specialties alone. Her time there was the highlight of her day, but one evening altered that. The manager had kicked her out, but once he understood who she was, he would want to go back. For her age, Mary was active. While maintaining in touch with her family, she enjoyed visiting friends. Her favorite activity was visiting this neighborhood restaurant she and her husband had been visiting for almost 3 decades. After hearing this, the woman realized she could not continue her routine. Mary often dined with others. She and her husband ate there when it opened and became regulars. They danced all night at their 30th wedding anniversary. Her husband died a year later. Mary suffered. She slowly lost her happiness. The old woman didn't want any visitors or to go out and ate very little. She worried everyone. The restaurant staff loved Mary, a regular. They awaited her big smile when she visited. She was always cheerful and kind to her server. She entered the restaurant nervously one day. The elderly woman ate quietly. She left without paying. Her staff wondered what happened. Her waiter followed her too late to request payment. He didn't worry. He anticipated her return. He found something shocking. Mary was miserable until she received a letter. The restaurant offered their favorite customer a free meal because she had been absent. She needed this encouragement to overcome her grief. Mary went to the same restaurant alone, which was hard. After 3 months, Mary had changed, but the restaurant remained the same. It was welcoming, and the kitchen smelled good. The staff soon discovered the 88-year-old woman's problem. As usual, Mary sat at the window table with the restaurant owner, who assured her he would be there for her. He was old, had lost, and knew her for 30 years. If you like my videos, don't forget to like or subscribe. Thanks in advance. Mary's life began with a great evening. She returned to the restaurant daily and became bubbly again. Mary had routine medical tests last week. The hospital finally called the old woman. Test result. She was apprehensive. Mary's doctor diagnosed blood cancer. Mary's heart felt stabbed. She inquired about its severity and duration. She had 6 months to a year left, the doctor said. Heartbreaking news. Mary changed and stopped going to the restaurant for 3 months. The restaurant that helped her through her grief was the same. The restaurant changed. The new manager was strict with staff and didn't know Mary's history with the establishment. This would cause a surprise. The new manager constantly chastised staff. He seemed to dislike their happiness and calm. The restaurant became gloomy, and many guests stopped coming. The once happy staff now came to work frowning. Mary visited her doctor to discuss her choices. After visiting the hospital, the 88-year-old woman went to the restaurant to forget her worries. The staff brought the day's specials to her window table. The waiter left Mary's table when the manager looked at the staff. Teammates told the new manager about Mary. He wanted to meet her because everyone praised her. It wasn't because he liked her. The manager wanted to see Mary because her unpaid bill was on the bulletin board with hearts and kind words. The staff never requested payment from the elderly woman. The manager told the old woman the restaurant only accepted paying customers. It doesn't matter how nice everyone thinks you are, he told her. We're not charitable. He asked her to leave, unaware of his actions. Mary wrote on a piece of paper and left without saying a word. The server saw the 88-year-old woman's black folder note while clearing the table. Waiter opened note. When Mary wrote, he screamed. He read what? Mary's words transformed the restaurant. I've loved coming to this restaurant for over 30 years was Mary's note to the restaurant staff. Your business has transformed. New hires replaced old ones. I've been here through a dozen menu changes. I loved it. You always supported me. The old lady's final message to her favorite restaurant staff. Mary continued, "Now that I am old and I'll pass away soon, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to you by leaving a sufficient sum for you." The bottom request was to report the manager to the owner and not give him any money. The waiter saw that the old woman had left the restaurant for 162.1 million. The waiter gave the owner the note in disbelief. He cried because Mary and her dear husband had been like family to him for over 30 years and he would never see them again. The manager was fired after a brief call with Mary. That wasn't the only time a restaurant employee hit a regular. A nearby case was similar. A 40-year-old diner regular was involved. A war vet in his town, the man was a childless widower who had always seemed to have bad luck. Mr. Roger Mayer spent his 87 years making others happy. He realized a terrible truth in his old age. Roger struggled to win friends. His late wife, Giselle, always said you couldn't please everyone. Roger tried for decades. But he'd always have the worst experiences, turning him into his worst self. Roger had always smiled. He helped people whenever he could. After discovering his goodness, his contemporaries used him. Roger was exhausted by his 60s. He was changing unknowingly. Roger grew icy from life. He couldn't count the times his loved ones hurt or betrayed him. Such events can harden anyone's heart. Roger followed suit. He was slowly changing, but he still wanted to be good. Roger's wife, Giselle, loved his kindness. He battled the darkness because being honest made her smile. Roger's goodness was slowly eroded by disaster, despite their perfect marriage. When Roger and his wife had children, bad luck began. But a few years into trying and failing, they visited the doctor only to discover they couldn't conceive. They struggled to conceive. They adopted 2 wonderful boys. But trouble wasn't over. Roger received a heartbreaking letter from his wife while serving his country. Both sons had accidents. They failed. Roger tried to finish his tour before returning home, like any serviceman. His kindness was fading. It would crumble in his final fate. Roger spent months with his wife before she got sick. He wouldn't lose her like his kids. After years of fighting, Giselle died. Roger shrank after seeing himself with nothing. Darkness finally invaded his heart. Roger enjoyed lunching at the local diner with his family before they died. His sons had loved the waffles at the diner, and Giselle adored their steak and eggs. Roger spent decades there, making many memories. He was clueless. Roger became isolated after Giselle's death. He always ate in a dark corner and left the restaurant quietly. He yelled at people, including servers, to leave him alone. He became known as the grumpy, rude old man. He was shunned. Except Alexa. University student Alexa moved to town. She talked to Roger most afternoons after college classes. At first, Roger tried to employ his usual tactics to scare her away but realized that she was as stubborn as he was. They became fast friends. Roger realized Alexa always talked to him despite his nasty attitude. She smiled and asked about his past. She inquired about his family and military service. More intriguing, Roger loved her company. He realized she was like the granddaughter he never had. Roger frequented the diner after finding someone to talk to. No one had sat with him at the restaurant in over 2 decades. Roger was finally starting to forget his longtime pain when disaster struck. Roger had his first stroke at 87. He awoke exhausted and in pain at the hospital. He asked the doctors for one last call, knowing he didn't have much time. Alexa worried sick after working double shifts all week. Her friend hadn't entered the diner for 4 days. Problems. After several weeks, a suited man with a briefcase entered the front door. He told Alexa he represented Roger. Roger died peacefully after writing a note for her. He thanked her for easing his suffering. He left her his house and vintage car so she could make memories there too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.